Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show! Grab your hooks, grab your yarn, and let's stitch it up together!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. It's the fall, and this time last year we made a cute little pumpkin drawstring sack. If you missed it, we'll put a link to that tutorial in the description box down below. But this year we have another fun little fruit for you. We've got an apple sack to make this time. This is a cute little bag. It's made out of scraps. You can stash your treats in it, or maybe even an apple. You can use acrylic or cotton or wool or whatever you want. If you'd like a written copy of this pattern, or this one, you'll find them both for sale in our Etsy shop. And we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below as well. But let's not waste any time. Let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and stitch up some cute little apple sacks together. In order to make our little apple drawstring sacks, you need around 25 grams of red yarn and a small amount of green and brown for the accents. I'm using a medium worsted weight size 4 yarn in acrylic, but you can use cotton or wool, whatever you have lying around, since this is a scrap project. You need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, you might want a stitch marker or a safety pin, and today's hook is a 5.5 millimeter or an I9 in the US, also known as a 5 in the UK. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. Once you've chained 1 to secure your circle, you're going to work 8 single crochet into your cinch circle. Remember to work over that short tail because that's how we're going to cinch the whole thing shut when we're done. Once you have 8 single crochet worked into your circle, grab the short tail, cinch it shut, and we are not joining our rows, we are working in the round. So if you feel it necessary to mark the first or last stitch of each row with a stitch marker, you want to grab your stitch marker now and either mark this or that as the stitch that is the signifier that ends or begins each row. For the rest of us, we are going to continue single crocheting right into the next stitch. We are not joining our rows. We're going to work 2 single crochet into each stitch all the way around for row 2, and at the end of row 2 you'll have 16 stitches. At the end of row 2 you should have 16 stitches. You can move your stitch marker to either the first or the last stitch to keep marking your rows. For row 3 we're going to continue increasing. We're going to work 2 single crochet into the next stitch to begin row 3 and 1 single crochet into the next stitch. So the pattern all the way around is 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, 1 single crochet into the next. At the end of row 3 you should have 24 stitches. At the end of row 3, you should have 24 stitches all the way around. Take a moment to move your stitch marker if you're doing that. Into row 4, we're still increasing. We're going to work 2 single crochet into the next stitch, and a single crochet into each of the next 2. And that's the pattern all the way around. 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, single crochet into each of the next 2. Repeat that all the way around, and you'll have 32 stitches at the end of row 4. At the end of row 4, we should be up to 32 stitches all the way around. We've got one more row of increasing to do. This is row 5. We begin with 2 single crochet into the first stitch, and a single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's the pattern all the way around. 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, single crochet into each of the following 3, and repeat that 8 times in total. You'll have 40 stitches at the end of row 5. At the end of row 5, you should have 40 stitches. Rows 6 to 15 is just straight single crochet. So we're now done with the expanding, with making the bottom of our little sack. We're now going to build the sack into the little pouch that will be able to house little treats or apples or whatever it is we want to put in here. So rows 6 to 15, you're just going to single crochet into every single stitch all the way around. You're not joining any rows, no more increasing. And I will see you at the end of row 15. At the end of row 15, you want to just continue adding a single crochets, maybe 3 or 4, until you get to a point where you are directly in alignment with that little bump, where row 1 turns into row 2. Just sort of track directly upwards. That'll just even off the top of your little sack nice and neatly. And here's how we count. So that's row 1, obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 15 rows. At the end of row 15, you're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch. That fastens off our tidy little sack top. Now we're going to add a row of eyelet. This is so we have something to weave our drawstring through. We're going to chain 3 to begin. This chain 3 will count as a half double crochet, chain 1. So the 2 chains is a half double crochet, 1 for a chain 1. Skip the next stitch, and we're going to half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. Once you've half double crocheted into those 3 stitches in a row, you're going to chain 1, skip 1, and half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. You're going to repeat that all the way around your little sack. So you're going to half double crochet into 3 stitches in a row. So 1, 2, 3. Chain 1, skip 1, and continue. Half double crochet into the next 3 stitches. And I'll catch up with you at the end. As you get around to the end of the row, you're going to chain 1, skip 1, half double crochet into the next 2 stitches, and remember that chain 3 we began the row with, that counts as a half double crochet chain 1, that's that right here. You're going to skip over that false stitch that the chain 3 comes out of, so just skip it, find the top of the second chain, and slip stitch right into that. And that leaves you with a nice little space and 3 half double crochets in a little row. You should have 10 little spaces all the way around. That's it for the sack part. You can snip your yarn, fasten off, pull that nice and tight, grab your yarn needle, and you can flip the inside of your edge so that you're looking at the inside of your edge, and just weave your tail back and forth through some of the stitches here. Back and forth through some of those stitches. You can pick up some stitches from below. And that, if you go back and forth a couple times through the same stitches, will keep your yarn from coming out. Remember not to pull too tightly. You don't want to pull anything out of alignment. You don't want to jam any of your stitches together. There we go. Pull back, and then nothing has changed on the outside. Double back over top of that last stitch and go back the other way. Next, we're going to make our little stem that sort of sits on the top of our little apple pouch. So you're going to grab your brown yarn. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. And this is really, really small crochet, so be patient with yourself. Take your time. We're going to work 4 single crochet into this cinch circle. So just 4, half of what we did when we started our little apple sack. Once you have 4, take that short tail, cinch it up shut. And now you're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around twice. So you're going to work directly into the next stitch. So there it is there. A little hard to see because it's brown. This is why I say it's really small. You've got to be a little kind of patient with yourself. We're not joining our rows, we're just working directly into the next stitch, but we're not increasing or decreasing. So if it helps to roll it down the top of your finger while you work, and if it helps to count, you basically want to single crochet 8 times, because you're going to go around row 1 once, and then go around row 2 once. So a total of 3 rows. Like I said, if it helps to just count 1 to 8, then go ahead and do that. This also doesn't have to be exact or perfect. What you're doing is creating a little narrow stem, and if you have to stop every once in a while and just sort of squeeze it so that you can see how tall it is or see where your next little stitches are, then go ahead and do that. Right, this doesn't have to be perfect. You basically want something that looks like this, a little stem. Once you've worked around a couple times, just slip stitch into the next stitch, wherever that may be. And you're going to leave yourself a long tail because we're going to use this to sew our stem down to our leaf. It doesn't have to be super long, but leave enough for a little bit of sewing. And then fasten off. Make sure that's nice and tight. You should have something that looks like this. It needs to be a stem. Now, if it's gnarly and twisted and awkward, perfect, because that's what actual apple stems look like. So if yours is straight, that's fine, but if it's got a whole bunch of character to it, don't worry. That's exactly what Mother Nature does to the apples. Next, we're going to make this leaf. So you want your green yarn and your hook. We're going to begin with a slip stitch. Once you have a slip stitch on your hook, chain 6. Once you have a chain of 6, we're going to work the following. We're going to work down one side, around the bottom, and then back up the other side. So here we go. Skip the first chain from the hook, find the second one, and slip stitch into it. Nice and loose, don't make it too tight. Single crochet into the next chain. Half double crochet into the next chain. Double crochet into the next chain. And into the last chain, we're going to work 7 double crochets. 7 double crochet into the last chain. Once you've worked 7 double crochet into that last chain, you should have something that looks like this. You can sort of turn around now. We're working up the bottom side of our foundation chain row. I'm just working over top of my little short tail, but if it confuses you, you can always put it to the back and weave it in later. These are now the stitches we're going to be working. So you see that that's the underside of the previous stitches. So we're going to work in reverse now. Double crochet into the next stitch, which will be right opposite the other double crochet. Half double crochet into the next stitch, right opposite the other half double crochet. Single crochet into the next stitch. And the last thing we do is slip stitch right into where we were to start. We're going to chain 1, and there is our leaf shape. We're going to add the vein now that runs down the center of it. So it helps to hold your leaf. We're going to be working down these center spaces, so you should be able to see them. They're the spaces that sit between the sets of stitches all the way down the length of your little leaf. First one, just nice, simple slip stitches. We're trying not to make these tight. You're going to be working right through, grabbing the yarn from behind and just slip stitching. It looks like a chain stitch running down the top of your leaf. And there's the last one, that big hole at the end. And now we're going to pull up a little bit. We're going to make a slightly extended chain. We're going to go right through the top of that stitch, which is the bottom of our leaf. Also a slip stitch. You might want to make it a little bit longer. Pull on your leaf if you have to. Chain 1, and that's it. Leave yourself a little bit of tail for sewing your leaf to your apple. Fasten off. And there's your leaf. You can weave in the rest of your short tail if you have any showing, or if you worked over it like I did, you can snip it off. You don't have to worry about that unraveling. And now we're going to join our stem to our leaf. We want our yarn needles now. We're going to thread up the long tail left behind on our stem. We're going to pick up our leaf so that we're looking at the top of it, and we're going to place the stem right at the bottom, so right at the base, somewhere around here. And we're just going to sew. Remember, you should have about 4 stitches all the way around the bottom of your stem, but if you don't worry. It's going to work out no matter how many stitches you have. So just plunk it down there at the bottom of your leaf. Use the bottom edge of one of those stitches and the first stitch on the bottom of your stem, and you're just going to sew through those 2 stitches twice. We're going to hop over top of our little tail left behind on our leaf and pick up the next 2 stitches. And we're going to do that twice. This is just to ensure that our little stem isn't going to go anywhere. Now that should leave you with 2 stitches left on the bottom of your stem. You're just going to pick up the top of a stitch, so the loop of a stitch on your leaf, bottom of the stitch on your stem. Do that twice. And same thing over here. Find another loop somewhere on a stitch on your leaf, and the whole stitch on the bottom of your stem. Do that twice, and it won't show through to the bottom of your leaf, which doesn't really matter, but it's just a nice little neat thing to do. Then all you're going to do is create a little knot at the side of your stem. Once you've made a little knot there, you can just pull the rest of that yarn up into the center of your stem and trim any excess. And there we go. Stem is now attached to leaf. We're now going to attach our leaf to the side of our little sack. I'm going to attach it along the 3 stitches either before or after the chain 3, but you can literally do this anywhere along the edge of your sack that you like. Thread up the green tail on your leaf, and you're going to pick the first stitch of a set of 3. And you're going to find the edge of your leaf just to the side of where your string or your yarn tail comes out of. And you're going to sew twice through the same set of stitches. Then you're going to move to the next stitch along the edge of your little sack and pick up somewhere along where your little stem is attached. Do that a couple times. And if it feels like it's on nice and sturdy and you don't think this little sack is going to have too much of a rough go, then that's probably enough. If you want to do it a third time just to be sure, then do the next set of stitches. It won't change the look, it'll just make sure that that leaf is on there nice and sturdy. And I really recommend that if this is going to be a little toy for children. Same thing we did with the stem, you're just going to make a simple knot with your yarn. And this time we're going to weave it in back and forth across the bottom of our leaf. So we'll poke our yarn through to the back. Flip it over. And now you've got a plethora of stitches that you can weave your yarn back and forth under. That'll make sure that the green tail does not come undone and your leaf does not fall off. You don't want fall coming too quickly. Once you're fairly sure that that is not going to weave itself out, you can snip any excess, and that is the stem and the leaf attached to the edge of our little sack. Next, we're going to make the drawstring. This is nice and simple. If you've got red ribbon or something else you want to use, you can use that in lieu of creating a drawstring. But I'm going to make one using the red yarn we made the apple sack out of. We're going to start with a slip stitch, or a slip knot, I should say, on our hook. And now you're just going to chain 80. Once you've chained 80, or a length that you prefer for your little sack, you can snip your yarn. You don't need very much tail, very, very little in fact. Pull that little end through the last loop on your hook and pull nice and tight. And that'll knot it off. You can trim up those little tails if you want so that they are the same. So you can match them up and grab your scissors, trim them up, and then you can weave them through your drawstring. So I like to go through the space opposite my little leaf and stem, and I just go through the little holes, in, out. There's the one underneath the stem, out the other side, in, out, in, and then out. And then, there it is. You can tie it in a bow, fill it full of snacks, or even a little apple, and you're all done. And there you go, one cute little drawstring apple sack, perfect for the upcoming fall. Nice little place to stash your goodies, and a fun way to bust through some scraps. I hope you had fun making this along with us this week, and we will see you soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye!